This week on Capitol Report, rallying the troops for Election Day.
You can win and you can compete everywhere when you put the resources to bear.
We claw with our fingernails for that inch.
Plus, an urgent plea to the federal government.
Our vision and our community coalition's vision is fully funded schools.
And a call for the state to loosen the purse strings.
It is time to give exceptions to the fiscal guardrails for things like education.
Math is a really cool thing.
Also, outrage over UI's request for a utility rate hike.
What a joke. You know, how unbelievably tone deaf do you have to be?
Hello? Hello? Anybody home? Hey, think with fly.
And Metro North allows commuters to make a stink about poor bathroom conditions.
Do not go in there. Woo!
All aboard. Capitol Report starts now. Welcome to Capitol Report. I am Tom Dutchik. We are so glad you're spending part of this Sunday morning alongside the power panel, the great mayor of Bloomfield, Connecticut, Daniel Wong is with us. The coach is with us, Joe Arasimowicz.
Good morning,
coach
sir.
Of the New Berlin High School football team and former Speaker of the House.
Thank you.
Liz Kranowitz with us, extraordinary campaign manager and consultant. Johnny Mac, hot dogs, peanuts.
Let's go, Mets, baby. I know Mayor Wong says these are Bloomfield colors, but this week they're Mets colors. Let's go.
Guaranteed to have a hell of a day. Hard to believe we're creeping up towards 1 month towards Election Day. How'd that happen? Last Thursday, Connecticut Democrats held a little pep rally in Hartford to talk about 2024 election. Connecticut Democrats, of course, have owned Congress since 2008, and they don't intend on giving it back. But that didn't stop the Democratic National Committee Chairman Jaime Harrison from coming to town. He knows that Connecticut's 5th Congressional District, one of the most hotly contested seats in the country, is also keeping an eye on 2nd District in Eastern Connecticut. Watch this.
At the DNC, we're not taking anything for granted. And that's why we are following what we call our 50-state strategy. We are investing in every single state, and we're investing in the people in those states because we want to turn every red district purple and then eventually blue. And we want to keep every blue district and blue state blue.
As for Connecticut Republicans trying to stop the blue streak, they say the bottom line for Connecticut families this election day should be the economy, stupid, and that tying state Republicans to Donald Trump, well, that's a futile strategy. Watch this.
They can't afford the high electric bills that Democrats have put in place. They can't afford the grocery prices that the Democrats have put in place. They can't afford the gasoline prices that Democrats have put in place. So they can try to tie Donald Trump to Connecticut Republicans all they want, but at the end of the day, they're tied to a huge rock that's taking them down to the bottom of Long Island Sound on the poor policies that the Democrats have made across this state for a number of years.
Guys, one of the issues in this election, a huge gender gap with women trending more towards the Democrats and men trending towards Republicans. Joe, you must know some people in your Democratic circles who are men, who are perhaps fathers of football players, who are voting for Donald Trump. How do the Democrats get around that and get them back into the fold?
Yeah, I think it's a difficult conversation because they're looking at it from more their perspective as opposed to the state perspective. They did see Donald Trump and his limited effectiveness really stand up to people that otherwise weren't stood up to. But they're falling off the wagon now because some of his really contentious comments. And it's coming down to the basic, hey, the insurrection and denying the results. And J.D. Vance doubled down on it. For Chairman Proto, I feel bad for him. He's like a one-legged man in a butt-kicking contest. I almost let it slip, what I really want to say. But, yeah, he's not right on the economy even. You look at unemployment. All-time historic low. The stock market is growing leaps and bounds. And sure, inflation is still up, but that's coming down now as we see too. Rates are down. So it's an empty argument. I don't think it'll affect Connecticut. Maybe Congresswoman Joanna Hayes is the only one that's really in trouble. Everything else is going to be Democrat across the board. And the House and the Senate will pick up seats.
Well, and that's what I find so surprising about this. The DNC national chair, 50-state program, I expect that. He's going to go to all the states. He probably raised a little money here in Connecticut as well. But he's not in the 5th district.
Yes.
Why does he show up in Hartford when I think as a Republican, I can admit that the race is Johanna Hayes versus George Logan. No other races are going to be competitive. And that could be a race that flips Congress. So why did he show up in Hartford? I don't know the answer to that, but I was very surprised.
Yeah, so this is exactly what the Democratic National Committee members should be doing. They should be making sure that they bring these resources and attention to those areas. And he is going on a 50-state campaign to make sure that we know in district from a local standpoint that we're getting the resources from the national perspective. And so that is going to trickle down into support for the 5th and for the 2nd, even though they're, the race is a little farther than the 5th is. So this is a good thing. We are pumping money into the airwaves. Now it's time to pump money into the local races, into the district races, and making sure that we have boots on the ground, effective, get that message out. Money message machine. That's how it goes down.
Look, let's not blow this out of proportion here, okay? This is a $2.5 million investment that the DNC is making nationwide in a 50-state program. It gives them the opportunity to come out and go and do a press conference and tell everyone how great they are and pat themselves on the back. But this is a minimal investment when you look at what's happening around the country. Certainly states like Pennsylvania, Georgia, Ohio, there are significant investments being made. This is a box to check so that the Democrat National Committee chair can go back to the members here in Connecticut and say, hey, remember when I invested in your state party? Please don't forget to vote for me for re-election. That's what this is about.
There you go, Liz, breaking it down. Well, the Republican challenge are looking to unseat Democrat Joe Courtney in Connecticut's 2nd congressional district. Made some unexpected news last week. Mike France made a post on Facebook to mark Breast Cancer Awareness Month that some people found offensive. Take a look. It's France's head on top of a shirtless actor, and it says, don't know how to check your breast? Well, I can help you with a link to information about breast self-exams. The original image and tagline was from a breast cancer awareness campaign from over a decade ago. Democrats, of course, teed off on this one, and while France took the post down, he says, well, the intention was to raise awareness. Watch this.
I would say take a look at the information that was shared with it and understand that there are different ways to get that point across, and I'm sorry for them if they feel that it isn't appropriate. But as I said, we were trying to raise awareness to this very issue and get people to understand the significance of it.
Most people I talk to say to have a man say, "Let me help you out with those breast exams," just doesn't feel right. It's inappropriate and it's offensive.
Mike, let me help you out. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that. End of discussion, Danielle, right?
He barely made it to an apology. I thought he was going to go there. He didn't. The bottom line is the behavior is deplorable, and his campaign team and himself need to absolutely come out with an apology. He knew it was wrong, which is why he took the post down shortly after that backlash. And so we got to stop being hypocritical. We got to stop gaslighting the community and really take ownership and accountability where it's due.
Look, this is a point in the campaign cycle where you don't want to make unforced errors, right? Like, you want to pay close attention to the things that you're doing and try as best as you can to avoid giving your opponents an opportunity to seize the microphone like they did. But I'm going to say this. Democrats ran to a podium to decry this post and said nothing when Representative Gucker posted something celebrating the fact that Donald Trump almost had his head blown off on national television. So spare me your holier-than-thou comments about what we need to be decrying and what we need not be.
Yeah, and I'll go to the Gucker thing, because I did serve with him, and I was one of the first calls, like, what in the world happened? And he was out campaigning for the day. One of his assistants uploaded a lot of photos. That got on there. He immediately said he was sorry, and it wasn't, I'm sorry if you felt, it was, I'm sorry, and we can move on. And I think that's where it falls short. But let's look at the structure. What's going on in his campaign that anybody on the campaign staff would let that get out?
Well, and that's the issue. I want to hope Mike France didn't see this before it went out. But whoever sent it out or whoever's running the campaign should have been fired yesterday. This is a terrible move. I know he's an underdog. I know he's trying to create attention, but this is a fail.
Don't do anything cute. Don't do anything cute.
No.
Don't try to be cute.
No, it's not even cute. It's offensive.
It's really what it is, regardless of what party or what you're running for.
Especially in October.
It's not.
It should have never happened.
It doesn't make sense.
So last week, the well-ran drive for millions and millions of dollars in education funding for Connecticut schools that came from the American Rescue Plan, that's ARPA to McKinney. In New Haven, educators and families rallied together to demand more funding for public school resources. Not just the feds they're targeting, they want the state to chip in more as well. Union leaders, school leaders, New Haven's mayor called on our legislators to lower the fiscal guardrails and invest some of Connecticut's surplus in education.
Here's what we need to do. We need to communicate clearly in advance of this legislative session and make sure that the obstacles to progress that some politicians call fiscal guardrails, they are not keeping us safe at all. They are preventing $4 billion in rainy day funds and $4 billion in surplus from making it to communities like Fairhaven where they are so desperately needed.
Right now, we as a district, and we're not alone in this, we're a district that is not equitably funded. Right now, we have so many significant gaps in our ability to be able to provide for children everything that they need and really realize the promise of public education.
Before Liz tees off on this, let's remind our little friends watching at home, we're going to be talking about guardrails for a long time coming up, Liz.
We certainly are. Look, where were these folks when the House Republicans put a budget on the table that used the ARPA funds to fully fund K-12 education and fully fund special education? Where were they? Because they're using it as a political tool right now in the middle of a campaign, but they were not there to back up Vin Candelora and Kathleen McCarty and the House Republicans who said this ought to be the priority. Instead, we put all of that money into the insatiable beast that is the college and higher ed system that is doing nothing to improve outcomes for the 119,000 kids that we talk about on this program constantly, and to do nothing for workforce preparedness. What about all those kids who are not going to college because it's not something that's working for them? Give me a break. Where were you when the opportunity was there to have an absolute impact on the outcome?
Well, Danielle,
I think both can be true. We absolutely need to fully fund public education, but the school boards from a local district absolutely need to make sure that they balance the books better, because these ARPA funds that were designated and allocated to these districts were supposed to be used for those one-time expenditures, not for ongoing operational costs that we knew were not going to be in the budget.
Shocked to find that out.
And here we are dealing with this and coming up into local budget seasons when school boards are coming to the city councils and the town councils of the world and trying to say, hey, we need more funding. You know, we're not getting it from the state, we're not getting it locally. How are we going to go about doing this? That's the struggle that we have locally, and something's got to change.
Yeah, you know, just to pour a little cold water on this, there was a very young, brave woman who came out with an op-ed recently, a 19-year-old who's in college, who graduated through the entire Hartford public school system, who said, I never learned how to read. And, you know, Joe, you and I served there a long time. No matter how much more money we gave to municipalities for education, it was never enough. And no matter how much we gave, results never got better. It's not the money. There's a bigger problem going on.
There is, and New Haven, to its credit, had almost a $60 million surplus. They should reallocate some of those funds. It should go to education and supporting its community.
More to come on this, guys. Up next on Counterpart, a number of new laws are now on the books here in Connecticut. What can we expect moving forward, especially if you're a fan of dog racing? We dive into all of this with News Rate's Mike Cerulli. When we get back, don't go away. Keep your huskies at home, too, right? Huh?
And your bulldogs.
And your bulldogs, right? What about the... Goldfish, greyhounds, State Senator James Maroney, lions and tigers, oh mine. Am I losing my mind, or are these three things actually connected? To answer that question, let's bring in our pal, Mike Cerulli. Hey, Mike, connect the dots on this one, huh?
Yeah, good morning, Tom. You're not losing your mind. Believe it or not, those three things are all connected. We saw a bunch of new laws go into effect in Connecticut on October 1st, and several of them had to do with animals. It is now illegal in Connecticut for fairs and carnivals to offer those little plastic bags with goldfish as prizes. Dog racing is now officially illegal in Connecticut. Husky is now the state dog, and those criminals who kill police canines, they'll now be on the hook financially for those dogs.
Like that police dog bill is inspired by some like real world events. It's nice when legislation works this way, right?
Yeah, a Connecticut State Police canine named Bracco was tragically killed in the line of duty in Stonington last year. Lawmakers from that area, Tom, including Heather Summers and Greg Howard, who's a former canine officer himself, really took this issue up and got that bill across the finish line.
Summers and Howard, two people with that have intentions on running for higher office one of these days, Mike. We're here, huh?
Yeah, intentions, I don't know if they've said that, but it's certainly something we've heard that they're in the mix for various offices. And I know McKinney has actually said on this program that Summers is viewed as someone who could potentially run for governor one day, Tom.
Where's James Maroney factor into these news laws, Mike?
Yeah, so James Maroney last year actually led the passage of a sweeping privacy law, data protection law that is really intended to safeguard children online. Again, this was during last year's session and went into effect this year, and I'll let Senator Maroney explain some of the provisions himself.
Making sure that if you design a product for children, you can't design it to make it an addictive product. So auto scrolling has to be shut off. You can't auto scroll and get auto replay on videos and get kids stuck in that loop of just unending videos. We require that you have protections to prevent an unconnected adult from contacting a child online. There's no reason, if you're not a family friend or connected with the child, for an adult to reach out through a messaging apparatus to connect with the child. Also, no targeted advertising to children under the age of 18 without their permission, and no sale of data, of children's data without their permission.
God, Maroney looks like he's high above Berlin Field there, calling the offense for Eric Simowitz here, huh? Hey, Mike, but you're a Gen Z correspondent here. What do you make of these new social media protections? Are they going to work?
Yeah, Tom, it's interesting. I was actually reflecting on that after my conversation with Maroney. My generation, specifically my cohort, I was born in 01, we've really been the test bed for what happens when you give kids unrestricted access to social media starting in adolescence. My peers and I, we were on Instagram and Snap starting in middle school with essentially no protections and no real understanding at the time of the impacts social media could have on mental health. So it's going to be interesting to see, as these laws start to get enacted around the country, will they actually impact the generation that's coming up after mine? Will we see some reversals of those alarming mental health trends? Remains to be seen. We've got them here in Connecticut now. It's a start, I guess.
The great Mike Cerulli, who tries to get the word cohort in every one of his segments. Mike, thanks for joining us. See you next week.
Great to be here.
Hey, so guys, UI is asking state regulators to approve another rate hike. We get some candid reaction from the Attorney General, William Tong. Stick around. Don't go away.
01. 01.
First was Eversource, and now United Illuminating asking state regulators to greenlight a 9% rate hike. Perhaps UI didn't get the memo about how Eversource's rate request went over with ratepayers. UI says it needs the extra scratch to fund more than $100 million in infrastructure projects. And so we asked Attorney General William Tong for his thoughts on this. Watch this.
What a joke. How unbelievably tone deaf do you have to be when people are really suffering right now, and to ask for more than $100 million after the last time they asked for more than $130 million and went to Pura and said that was absurd and unacceptable. And we beat them back then. They got, $6 million out of a $130 million request, and they come back right away and ask for another $100 million is absurd. The solution is they should step up and provide a high quality of services for Connecticut and not ask to pad their corporate profits.
Pestilence, world colliding, dogs sleeping with cats.
Oh my goodness. What he's doing is patting himself on the back.
I don't know if that's appropriate for the Attorney General to go in there and comment on these.
But what he's doing is he's taking total ownership and celebrating the fact that he himself is responsible for the failing infrastructure of our electric grid. I mean, that is absurd. Is he going to hold Pura and Democrat legislators responsible for the policies that they have passed that have then been passed on to the ratepayers? I mean, the biggest problem we have in this state is that there is no holistic approach to how are we going to improve our electric grid and our infrastructure and deliver power in an affordable and an effective way to the consumers. And what he is saying there is not participating in that conversation. Give me a break.
Yeah, and John, you can go back to the history on him, but this has been happening in Connecticut for 30 years. The legislature gave up its power to Pura because it was too political. Let them figure it out, and we haven't come to the solution. Less outrage, more solutions. Let's all get around the table. We can figure it out.
I don't know. I kind of like the Attorney General being outraged like that. It was a good look, but Nobody has the solution. We're at the end of the line, but everybody needs to take politics out of it.
Yeah, I'm telling you, from a local side, we are looking to the state to find the solution. I'm telling you, people in my community are hurting. They cannot afford these utility costs. We are suffering all around as far as wraparound services are depleting as we speak, and people cannot afford to have their electricity cut off because they can't afford to pay it.
And it's amazing, you know, it's not just communities like Bloomfield. It's everywhere.
Of course.
Everybody
It's
in the state is really being hit by this. Even people who are sort of wealthy are saying, wait a minute, I'm losing a lot of my take-home pay just on an energy.
It's not like this is new. We've been talking about this, not us, but since El Grasso, people have been complaining about these rates in the state of Connecticut.
So 50 years.
And if I'm going to pay these rates, I'm going to live in Hawaii. If I'm going to pay a lot, that's where I'm going to live.
You play your ukulele.
There you go. All right, guys. Up next, we're going to talk about bathrooms on Metro North trains. Hey, is this a great program or what? That report will be right back. Stay out of the men's room. Well, if you ever taken Metro North train and found yourself in need of a restroom or on like SantaCon or the St. Patrick's Day Parade Day, well, you know, you may be taking your life in your own hands. The train lavatories have a long tradition of being, well, a little messy, and the folks at MTA saw this as a problem, and hopefully they found a solution. Metro North riders can now scan a QR code that allows customers to take a survey where they can elaborate on the restroom conditions about, well, bad odor and whether the toilet and sink needs cleaning, if the floors or walls need cleaning. Let's not even go there. And if toilet paper, towels, or soap needs restocking. Once submitted, cleaning team members should respond to the issue in 48 to 88 hours. Metro North says they'll analyze the data to identify efficiencies. Metro North, Fairfield County, McKinney, right? You've been on those trains a lot, too.
I'll say, just from my perspective, I would rather go to the bathroom on a Metro North train than have to go to the bathroom at Grand Central Station all day long. I'll just say that.
Yeah, well, data is important. So I'm glad they're collecting it.
Right. I've never had an issue, so.
The only thing safer than a porta potty, though, might be the Metro North.
Hats off to my friend Rob Metz from Avery Beverages, who watched the program last week as we talked about his beverages, and he sent a Aaron Stewart 2026. Look at that, huh? And it says, from your friends at Avery's, we are ready when you are. Well, how about that, huh? Thanks, Rob. Appreciate it, guys.
Where's the Ned Lamont
Cheers.
color? What's Ned Lamont's flavor going to be?
The coach, Liz, Jaime. Hey, you make this to win the World Series.
He did slow down the release in a real attempt.
He got so nervous, like, this is it. The Mets are riding on this right now.